Alright, welcome back to the channel. Warhammer Man back in the studio, and today we're doing something a little bit different. I am working on a commission, and for the longest time I have used Games Workshop exclusive paints. But as of recently, we know Games Workshop has changed some of their shades and made some changes not only to the actual shade line, some improvements according to them, but also they have decreased the container size from a 24 milliliter container down to the 18 milliliter container. So I decided to do some experiments because up until recently, I had never even considered using alternative companies' paints or supplies for the most part. But in this case, I decided finally that perhaps it was worth at least exploring other options. Even if they failed, I would at least know that I had looked into them and they just were not acceptable. And that is why I continue to stick with the GW shades. Or possibly I could find an alternative. So that being said, here we have essentially a bunch of custom bases that I have made for some commissions. You will notice, obviously, that the majority of them are very similar, and then there are two larger bases that are similar to each other. All of them are custom made, and what these will actually end up going on is some Sisters of Battle Adeptus Sororitas commissions that I'm working on. There's a few different commissions. So one of them is an existing expansion commission. So I was unable or unwilling to even take a chance that there would be any differences whatsoever. So I decided to stick with the traditional route. And then for the other one, I decided I would try out the Army Painters paint line. So let's take a look at the bases. Let's take a look at the paints, and I will give you my honest opinion as to, essentially, are there acceptable, alternatives? What's the price difference? And, the whole breakdown of all that. So let's take a closer look. All right, so in order to make sure that this experiment was as accurate as possible and remove as many variables as possible, what I did was I created all of these bases. I went through the exact steps that I would normally use to not only model the bases, but the primers, the base coating, the dry brushing, all of the steps I did exactly the same on these bases, right up until it's time to apply the Agrax Earthshade. So the ones on the left, there are for 7 of the regular bases, the 40 millimeters, and then one of the special bases. It's for more Vinval. And then on the other side, we have 6 of the same bases, and then one for more Vinval as well. And those were used the strong tone quick shade from the Army Painter. In both cases, none of these were provided by Games Workshop or Army Painter. I purchased these with my own money. And, that way I could do an unbiased experiment, obviously, as I wanted to make sure, not only for the video, obviously, but for myself, that, we're basically comparing apples to apples and seeing truly what is the difference, how much worse is the difference, how much different is the price, and then when it's all said and done, is it actually worth it? So just to do like the basic breakdown, the Agrax Earthshade, that is the 24 milliliter bottle right there. And that costs $7.80 retail. And then for the strong tone quick shade from the Army Painter, that is an 18 milliliter bottle, and that costs roughly $3. So one is roughly $8 and the other is roughly $3. One comes in a 24 milliliter pot, but now has been shrunk down to the 18 milliliter pot. So that is one of the 18 milliliter pots. I did not use Apothecary White anywhere in this video, just for reference, like the size difference. But essentially what happened was Games Workshop reformulated their shades and made some changes to them. But most importantly, they decreased the bottle size from 24 milliliters to 18 milliliters, which is the same size as the Army Painter one. So essentially what happened was it went from $7.80 for 24 milliliters to $7.80 for 18 milliliters. So you're basically, it's the equivalent of a 33% price increase because you get less product now. So the product that you do get costs more money. So that was what actually prompted me to try out some alternatives. So now in this case, we have essentially the same size container for both. One is $3 and the other is $7.80. So obviously the $8 one has to perform phenomenally well to make it worth that. So when we look at these bases, can we tell a difference? That's the most important thing. So obviously, because I created these bases essentially from scratch, with the exception of like the little Morvenval piece in the middle, they're not going to be exactly the same. You can see some slight differences, but they're both for a Morvenval model for the Adeptus Sororitas. So they're very close in actual looks, but painting style wise, I did the exact same techniques on both of them. And then again, I just used the difference, the strong tone from Army Painter on the right, this one here. And then I used the Agrax Earthshade from Games Workshop on the left. So when it's all said and done, regardless of the price, I think when I look at these and, give an honest opinion on them, if I can tell a difference, it's very, very little. The strong tone from Army Painter is slightly more glossy in some areas, but it's barely noticeable in real life, let alone on the video. Sometimes on the videos, things don't show up exactly how they do in real life. So I'm not sure if it will convey like perfectly. But the fact of the matter is, when it's all said and done, if you handed me these two and I didn't know that you use different paints on them, I wouldn't even think twice about it. I might think maybe there was a slightly heavier application on one than the other, or some other small difference. But to tell you the truth, I could put these both in the same army and they would look perfect together. So for the overall finished product, I think you get the same results about 95%. Again, there's slightly more gloss on the Army Painter one, but not to where it's a point, like a problem or anything. So that being said, quality-wise, I think they're very, very close to equal, maybe a slight edge to Games Workshop. So the next thing to pay attention to is like application-wise. When I was putting them on, did one go on better than the other? Well, if you've used some of Army Painter stuff in the past, it's slightly thicker. The GW shades have a little bit of like an oily kind of feeling to them, but they apply very, very close to like a water. As where the Army Painter paints or washes in this case apply just a little bit more like an oil and a little less like water. So they're a little thicker. They don't quite spread the same. They feel kind of like jelly. But when it's all said and done, I don't think it took me any extra time. I didn't have to put any extra effort into the Army Painter one. And when it's all said and done, again, the effects, the finished product, very, very close, if not, the same. So that is our two big bases right there. And while we've got them right here, I figure we can take a look at the smaller ones as well. Again, very little to no difference. I'm very happy with the final effect of both of them. I would be ecstatic to have something cheaper that does the same job. So now that we know they give almost the same effects or negligible differences, I give a slight edge to Games Workshop. The most important thing to pay attention to next is the size of the bottles. So now that Games Workshop has decreased the size of its shades, they're both the same size, both 18 milliliters. So the real question is, would you rather have a paint pot or a like dropper bottle? And obviously, if you ask anyone on the internet or all of existence, they would tell you a dropper bottle. This is actually where I'm going to say something a little controversial. I disagree. Dropper bottles are good for certain things. And, honestly, Games Workshop's paint pots are good for some certain things as well. And the truth is, the dropper bottles are the best when I don't want to paint straight out of the bottle. If I'm using a wet palette or something like that, that's when I want dropper bottles. When it comes to shades, I want to paint straight out of the bottle. Same with contrast paints as well. So in my opinion, again, I have to give Games Workshop the edge on the pots. I know that most people are not going to agree with me, but the truth is, that's my opinion, that's my preference. And, if you don't believe me or you think I'm just trying to make Games Workshop sound better, I want to just show you something. So here we have, this is the dark tone from Army Painter. And as you can see, I have taken one of Games Workshop's pots, taken the label off of the quick shade and put it on the pot, and then I dump the contents inside of this bottle. Because regardless of anything else, I want to use these bottles when I use my shades. So honestly, if you don't believe me, that's fine. Or if you don't agree with me, that's fine as well. But I have to give edge to the pots here. And the reason I'm showing this off right here is because it's the opposite. All of my Citadel paints, with the exception of shades and contrast paints, I have purchased dropper bottles actually from Army Painter. And then I have converted over all of them into the Army Painter dropper bottles. So this is one of the Army Painter dropper bottles, like they're mixing bottles they sell. They're roughly about $1 each. You can buy cheap ones on the internet. Overall, they're pretty good. But to tell you the truth, if you have a blender where you squeeze them or they're a little cheap or they break open, blow off the top, etc., they can be a nightmare. So for me, I just pay the extra money and get the nice quality Army Painter dropper bottles. But the reason I'm showing you this is to just reinforce the point that I actually went out of my way and spent additional money to convert all of my Citadel paints, literally hundreds of them, into dropper bottles. And then also, it didn't cost me any money, but I used my old wash or, shade bottles from Games Workshop and converted over all of my Army Painter shades into them or washes into them. So again, it's not about the money. It's not about the company that makes them. It's about what actually works better. And the truth is, for regular paints, dropper bottles do 100% work better. But for washes and contrast paints, it's all about the Citadel paint pots. And again, that's just my opinion. You don't have to agree. But the fact that I'm going out of my way, spending money to put all my Citadel paints in dropper bottles, and then going out of my way, it's not a bunch of work, but putting my Army Painter shades into Games Workshop paint pots tells you that there's legitimately a reason I'm doing this. I'm not just doing it for fun or to spend extra money or extra effort. So again, that is my opinion. You don't have to agree with it. All right, so the next thing we need to do is talk about price. Price is obviously relevant. So if we went through and we've decided that I give a slight edge to Games Workshop on the quality of the wash, but otherwise barely noticeable, I would say interchangeable. So I would say equal, slight edge GW. And then as far as the actual containers that they come in, I do love dropper bottles, but not for washes. So again, I give a slight edge to Games Workshop on their paint pots, only for washes and contrast paints. And then now that Games Workshop has decreased the size to 18 milliliters, which is the same as the Army Painter one, essentially I have to say in the first three categories, they're basically equal, slight edge Games Workshop. So now let's talk about the final factor, which is price. So we already know that the shades are $7.80. It used to be for the 24 milliliter big bottle, and now it is $7.80 for the smaller bottle, which is the same price as Army Painter. And Army Painters are still about $3 each. So you can find a discount on both of them to get them for about 15 to 20% off easily, either Games Workshop or the Army Painter. In some cases, you can find Army Painter as much as 30, and I've even purchased some things for 40% off, including some of the washes here. So when it's all said and done, $2 and let's say $3 versus $8, you're paying almost 3 times as much for Games Workshop for the same quantity of what I call an equal quality product. So I have to give the edge to Army Painter on this one, and it's substantial edge. Previously, Games Workshop just kind of eked out a W in the first couple categories, but Army Painter absolutely destroys Games Workshop on price. So not only did they destroy them on price for the bottles like this, but actually Army Painter offers a 240 milliliter bottle. It's basically like a can, and they're called the quick shades. They're like for dunking your models in, but you could obviously paint straight out of it or use it in smaller bottles and use it in the same way. It's the same product, it's just in bulk. So for 240 milliliters, it's $30. So for essentially 4 bottles of the Games Workshop shade, you would spend roughly the same price. Roughly $8 times 4, $7.80 times 4 comes out to roughly $30, which is the same price as the Army Painter one. So for that amount that you get now with the new bottles from Games Workshop, you get 72 milliliters of product. But in the Army Painter quick shade like dunking thing, you get 240 milliliters. So you literally get almost 4 times as much. Almost 4 times the price for the Games Workshop product, or 4 times cheaper for the Army Painter. So when it's all said and done, after doing a field experiment myself with as few variables as possible, I have to say without a doubt that Army Painter is a superior product when you factor everything together. Games Workshop has a slight edge on quality and final result. It has a slight edge on the container it comes in. But when it's all said and done, the Army Painter destroys it in the price compartment. So I know I said I would continue to use Games Workshop products indefinitely, and that's not going to change. I will definitely use some Games Workshop products indefinitely, but going forward, I'm not going to be purchasing any more Agrax Earthshade probably for the rest of my life. Now, granted, I have a couple stocked up just in case before I did this experiment to make sure that I could always make sure that, the commissions I do would match and there wouldn't be any differences in case there was substantial changes to the quality of Games Workshop's new reformulated shades. But when it's all said and done, Army Painter absolutely destroys Games Workshop. The Army Painter washes are a far superior product when you take into account all of the variables. And the truth is, most people would say that they prefer the dropper bottles over the paint pots. So if you're one of those people, then really the only difference is Army Painter wins in every category, but they're slightly more glossy and slightly more oily. But when it's all said and done, the final is just as good for Army Painter, I would say, within a fraction. You really can't even tell the difference in real life, let alone on the video probably. And for what amounts to a quarter the price, you just absolutely cannot beat it. And then on top of that, you can get Games Workshop products typically at about 15 to 20% discount. You can find Army Painter products such as those quick shade dips for about 33% off. You can find them in most places online, or a lot of places online, for around like $22. So for $22, you can get 240 milliliters, or for $22, you can get 54 milliliters. So realistically, with the discount and everything, you're talking about basically 5 times as much for the Games Workshop product that is negligibly better. And to tell you the truth, the Army Painter ones come with the squeeze bottles in this case, which to some people is obviously worth it. But I would say the way to go is the big quick shade container. So anyway, I just did this experiment, not really for a video, but for me in real life, as someone that purchases tons and tons of Games Workshop products, as someone that literally paints every day of their life, as a commission artist, and as someone that typically will go above and beyond for the quality as long as it's warranted. I have to say, honestly, without any doubt in my mind, going forward, I will not be purchasing any more of the Games Workshop shades unless it's something that's not made by Army Painter, or, well, yeah, that's pretty much it. So the truth is, Games Workshop's been showed up. Army Painter is better. Army Painter is better than Games Workshop. When you take into account all the factors, especially the price, Army Painter just absolutely destroys Games Workshop. And from someone that literally has a channel based on Games Workshop products, and has been using their products for literally decades, and have very, very limited experience with Army Painter products, I have to say I'm very pleasantly surprised. I looked into Army Painter a while back and was curious about the prices and the quality of the paints. And while I can't speak to the actual paints themselves, because I have used them very, very, very little, I can speak on the washes, and I can honestly say that Games Workshop's shades are completely outshone by the price difference in the Army Painter washes. So going forward, I definitely recommend the quick shades 100% over Games Workshop shades. And going forward, yeah, I'm converted. I'm Army Painter shades all the way from here on out. So hope you guys enjoyed the video today. I wanted to do a legitimate breakdown, not only for the channel, obviously, but for myself. I wanted to know, up until this point, the Games Workshop prices, I've just kind of shrugged them off because obviously I charge a premium for the services, and the last thing I want to do is cheap out on my clients or provide a subpar, service or quality item. But I don't see any difference in the quality here. I only see a difference in the price. And the truth is, I really don't care what I'm using as long as the quality, when it's all said and done, and the finished product is top notch. And in this case, Army Painter has made that very, very clear. So I'm very happy with the results from Army Painter, very happy with the prices. And you know what? I have to thank Games Workshop, because to tell you the truth, if they hadn't have reduced the size of their bottles, if they hadn't went from 24 milliliters down to 18, I probably never would have went through this process. I would have never explored alternatives. And, people do the same thing with games, models, 3D printing, paints, whatever. They finally reach that point where they're like, you know what? this is my line in the sand. I'm going to at least check out my options. Because prior to that, I had went, something like 30 years almost in the hobby without exploring some of the alternative options, or kind of just, brushing off some of the alternative options as if they were not as good a quality, when the truth is that it's really just the name brand, the sticker on the bottle, but the quality itself is not necessarily reflected by that name brand or by the price. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video today. If you are into Warhammer 40,000, Kill Team, Necromunda, Age of Sigmar, Warcry, any kind of tabletop wargaming content, if you're into, reactions, reviews, news, painting, modeling, conversion tutorials, magnetizations, painting, stuff like this, testing, experiments, all that good stuff, make sure to like and subscribe. Really helps out the channel. It's absolutely free, and you can show your support. Let me know if you have had similar results like this, or if you have tried them out. Let me know what you think about the price difference or the quality difference. Always love to hear from the community. Also like to hear, have you tried out, obviously most people have tried out Citadel shades. Have you tried out any of the Army Painter washes or shades as well? Did you find similar results to mine? Are some of them better than others, or others are worse than others? Pretty much the same thing, but yeah, let me know. Always like to hear back from you guys in the comments. Let me know if this helped you. Let me know if in the future you're going to consider possible alternatives as well. Not only just to save money, but potentially like the different container they come in, or just to support an alternative brand as opposed to Games Workshop, etc. So that's it. When it's all said and done, Games Workshop's washes are, in my opinion, a 10 out of 10. And Army Painter's washes are a 10 out of 10 as well, for like quality and usefulness. But the price on Army Painter is 10 out of 10, and the price on Games Workshop is a 2 out of 10. Before I would have said it's a 5 out of 10, but by decreasing the bottle size and leaving the price the same after they said they were not going to be raising the prices on their paints, you get a 2, Games Workshop. You get a 2. So Army Painter all the way. You guys are killing it. Keep up the good work. And yeah, that's it for today, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Warhammer Man Studios. I'm Warhammer Man, and I'm out of here.